Why is Goblin Piledriver never sad? Because he has protection from the blues.
Before we get into today's game, I want to talk about the sponsors for my channel. Card Conduit is the best way to sell your unused Magic cards. Whether you've got a box of unsorted bulk, or a complete and alphabetized set, there's a great option for everyone. With a payout averaging 19% better than using any one buy list, and that's after fees are applied, you can rest assured you'll get the best bang for your buck. If you're a skeptic like me, their easy customer service and detailed reports make the whole interaction transparent and safe. And if you use the affiliate link in the description below, or the promo code MTGMUDSTA, you'll save 10% off their fees. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. Not to mention an easy-to-use and great online buy list. And if you use the promo code MTGMUDSTA, your first purchase of MTG Sealed and Singles will be 5% off. And Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest deck. So be sure to use the code MUDSTA or the affiliate link down below to save 5% on your next order. And just a heads up before we get into today's game as well, things are going to be a little bit different this week. On Wednesday, April 3rd, I'm excited to reveal a preview card from the Big Score. And on April 4th, I'll be revealing Desert Bloom, the Naya Precon deck from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Rather than having 2 videos in one day, I'm just going to reveal the Precon on the Thursday and then push the Thursday gameplay onto Friday. That means you'll be getting at least 4 videos from me this week, with maybe a short thrown in there for good measure. Other than that, let's enjoy today's game. Today's patron shoutout goes to Watcher of the Hollow. Thanks for supporting the channel through Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, I've actually got a patron-submitted deck list that I'm playing in today's game, and I'm joined with Ian, Mika, and Maximus. This deck list is submitted by the patron Coral, and they've named it Targeting Typal. The commanders are Ishai and Krark, and my opening hand has Plains, 2 Islands, Arcane Signet, Snapcaster Mage, Precursor Golem, and Leap. Maximus is playing Elesh Norn, keeping 3 Plains, Pearl Medallion, Generous Gift, Zenith Chronicler, and Stroke of Midnight. Mika is playing his updated 9th Doctor and Adric deck that I made him for Christmas, and he keeps 2 Islands, Mountain, Sphinx of the Second Sun, Sin Prodder, and Chronozoa. Ian, who you may remember from before, is playing his Solphim Mayhem Dominus deck, keeping 4 Mountains, Pyrohemia, Star Compass, and Hour of Devastation. Mika wins the die roll and starts us off. He plays an island. Ian draws and plays a mountain. I have a Plains for turn and pass. Maximus draws, plays a Plains, and passes. Mika plays a mountain for turn, and then pays 2 for a Shrine of Piercing Visions. Ian plays another mountain, and pays 2 for a tap Star Compass. I've got an island for turn, and cast Arcane Signet. Max plays a Plains, and taps 2 mana, but realizes it only casts him 1 as he casts Land Tax. Mika adds a counter to his Shrine, and draws for turn. He plays an island, and then suspends an Inspiring Refrain. Ian plays a mountain for turn, and taps 4 mana for his commander, Solphim, and passes to me after that. I play an island for turn, and then pay 4 for one of my commanders with Ishai. Maximus goes to find 3 Plains on his upkeep, and draws. He then plays a Plains for turn, and casts a Zenith Chronicler. Since he's cast a spell, I get to add a +1/+1 counter to Ishai, and then Maximus passes to Mika. Mika adds a counter to his Shrine, and removes one from the Refrain. He then plays a tap land, and casts the 9th Doctor. This gives Ishai another counter, and his Shrine gets one too. Plus, Mika's opponents each draw a card from the Zenith Chronicler. We then move to combat, and Mika swings the Doctor at Max, who takes the hit. Ian's turn has him drawing and playing a mountain. He then activates Solphim, discarding 2 cards and putting an indestructible counter onto it, and then goes to combat. He hits Max for 5 and passes to me. I draw, but can't find a land. I do, however, find a Smothering Tithe, which might help out. I then move to combat and hit Ian with Ishai and pass to Max. Maximus gets his Land Tax trigger, finding 3 Plains. He then draws for turn and doesn't pay the 2, so I make a treasure. He then plays a Plains and casts Pearl Medallion, with Ishai getting another +1/+1 counter. Maximus then casts Stroke of Midnight, and Ishai gets another +1/+1 counter, and the 9th Doctor gets blown up. Maximus then discards down to 7 as he passes to Mika. Mika adds a counter to his Shrine and removes one from his Refrain. He then pays the 2 to deny me a treasure, and plays a mountain for turn. 3 mana then gets him an As Foretold, which has Ishai getting another +1/+1 counter, and Mika passes. Ian draws and doesn't pay the 2, so I make a treasure. He then taps 4 mana for Pyrohemia, and I am so quick to counter that with Swansong. I also get to add a counter to Ishai. Moving to combat, Ian hits me with his commander for revenge, and then passes turn. My turn has me drawing and still not finding a land. I use my treasures and all of my lands, casting the Precursor Golem I've had in hand since the beginning. It comes in and makes me 2 3/3 tokens. Moving to combat, I decide to make Max a rainbow, hitting him with my commander, so he'll have a colored tab from each opponent on the table, and I then pass turn. Max grabs his planes and draws, not paying the 2. He then plays a planes for turn, obviously, and casts an expedition map. He then uses Generous Gift and blows up Ishai. With nothing else, he then passes and discards down to 7. Meek adds a counter to his shrine and then As Foretold, and then removes the last suspend counter from his refrain. This has him drawing 2, which he doesn't pay the tax for, and then puts it back into exile with 3 more suspend counters. He then draws for turn, and doesn't pay for that either. Mika then activates and sacrifices the shrine, looking at his top 6 and keeping 1. Mika then plays a command tower and casts Relic of Legends. He then enchants himself with a Paradox Haze, and follows that up with a Dragon Master Outcast and passes. Ian pays his 2 to deny me the treasures, and plays a mountain for turn. He then taps 3 mana for Zozu, which is going to really hurt moving forward. He then hits Mika for 2 with the Swan, which allows him to cast Light of the Stage for the alternate cost. He exiles his top 2, and then passes to me. During his end step, I cast Defiant Strike and target the Precursor Golem, which copies the spell onto the other golems as well. This has me drawing a total of 3 cards. I draw and play a Steam Vents untapped, taking 2 so it comes in untapped, and then another 4 from the Zozu and Solphim. I then pay 5 mana for a Mirrorwing Dragon, and pass. During my end step, Max cracks his expedition map, going to find Thespian Stage to put to hand. Maximus gets his land tax trigger because of Mika, and then draws for turn, not paying the 2. His main phase has him casting Elesh Norn, and he then drops the Thespian Stage, taking 4 from Zozu and Solphim's ability combined. He then passes and discards down to 7. Meek adds a counter to his As Foretold and removes 1 from his refrain. He then makes a dragon token and moves to his second upkeep, doing that all over again. He then draws for turn, but doesn't pay the 2. Mika then uses his As Foretold to help cast the 9th Doctor and pays the 2 needed for his commander tax. He then taps 4 more mana for Chronozoa and passes to Ian after that. Ian draws for turn and doesn't pay the 2, and we realize we should have drawn from the Zenith Chronicler as well because Mika cast a multicolored spell. This gives me more treasures since my opponents can't pay for their draws. Ian then plays a mountain from exile, taking 2 as it comes in from Zozu. He then casts Torbrand from exile as well. Ian follows that up with a Circle of Flame and passes. During his end step, I cast Sway of Illusion and target the Mirrorwing Dragon. This copies the spell to all of my creatures, and more importantly, draws me 5 cards. My turn has me drawing, and I play a Glacial Fortress, and this time takes 6. I then cast a Heat Shimmer and target the Mirrorwing Dragon once more, which makes a copy that copies all of my creatures. And once that's done, cast Cloak of Feathers, targeting the Mirrorwing Dragon again. This has me getting a total of 10 copies, drawing 10, and giving all of my creatures flying. I then use 3 treasures to cast Jeskai Ascendancy, which triggers the Zenith Chronicler, and my opponents each draw a card. Only Mika can pay the 2, which has me making 2 treasures. I then pay 1 blue to cast Slip Through, and target the dragon again, which pumps my board from the Ascendancy. I get to draw and discard a card from the Ascendancy, and then I get to draw 10 cards. Not to mention all of my creatures are unblockable. I then play a red and a blue for Balmor, who resolves. I followed them up with Expedite, targeting the dragon again, and pumping my board with the Ascendancy and Balmor, plus drawing 11 cards. Next up is you come to a river, and I pick the mode of finding a crossing, pumping my board as it targets the dragon again. This gives everything an additional +1/+1 from the Ascendancy, and another +1/+0 and trample from Balmor. I then move to combat, and have enough to take out 2 players. I pick Max because he's playing white and likely has access to more board wipes than everyone else, and Mika, whose upkeep shenanigans seem to be on the cusp of taking over the game. I swing enough to take them both out, and they both die. I then move to my end step, removing the tokens and discarding down to 7, which considering my hand size is easier said than done. Ian draws her turn and plays a mountain. He taps 4 mana to cast a Fiery Confluence, and picks the mode to deal 2 to each of his opponents 3 times. This, combined with Tollbrand and Solphim, has me taking a total of 18 damage. Sadly, I figured I could take at least 1 hit from combat, and not 18 additional damage, which leaves me in a pretty precarious state. He then thinks about casting Mizium Mortars, and we realize he only actually has to just swing in and take me out, so he does so and wins the game. Game review time. This game was 53 minutes and 29 seconds, and it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I was able to open up a Patreon tier to allow people to submit decks to me, because this is a great deck. I didn't even get a chance to cast Krark, although I'm sure he'd be particularly broken in this deck, but it was just a lot of fun to use Mirrorwing type effects and just get a lot of value out of very simple spells. I'm excited seeing Mika's continued tweaking of Ninth Doctor and Adric. I think Upkeep Typal is just a really fun type of deck, and there's a lot of really good cards that people aren't expecting. Those shrines from New Phyrexia are particularly fun, and I'm hoping to see more of them. Max's Elesh Norn deck did not a whole heck of a lot, unfortunately, since he died so early, and it's a real shame. Hopefully he keeps it together so we can see it again in the future. I probably should have expected something like what Ian played with his Solphim deck, and having Tollbrand out, it was just probably too risky to not take him out. In hindsight, I probably should have taken Ian out instead of Max, but it's so hard to tell with red and white as they both have a pretty decent amount of board wipes in them. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.